Hi everyone, welcome to Module 3. For Module 3, you're going to be reading Chapters 11, 12, and 13. I have some videos and articles that you can review as well. You have your My Econ Lab work over those 3 chapters and discussion board number 3. For discussion board number 3, you want to make sure to focus on having an APA formatted in-text citation and reference for your initial post. You want to make sure to have 3 to 4 paragraphs and enough content development to really focus on the question. Also, make sure that you have 2 peer responses, which can be to any of the questions that I post as well. So for this week, let's look at Chapter 11. Chapter 11 is looking at GDP. GDP is looking at what an economy produces given the goods and services that are being produced within an economy in a given year. GDP is going to be focused on producing final goods and services, and that's what's going to be evaluated, not intermediate goods and services. When we look at GDP, we're going to measure it in 2 different ways: real GDP and nominal GDP. Real GDP is going to be looking at where we have prices that are constant compared to nominal GDP, where we're going to have both constant price and constant output. To evaluate economic growth is whenever there's an increase in real GDP over 2 consecutive periods. The economy really likes to have economic growth because it creates more jobs and stability in our economy. When you look at this chart, you'll notice that we've experienced economic growth in our economy, and this economic growth has created a lot of opportunities for us. When there's more economic growth, more people are working, more people are earning income, more jobs are being created, and it creates more opportunities for us as well. GDP is divided into 4 separate components: consumption, investment, government, and net exports. The largest component of GDP is going to be consumers. They make up about 70% of our economy, whereas businesses are about 15%, government's about 17-18%, and net exports is about -3 to 4%. You'll notice that exports are negative because we have what's called a trade deficit, where we're exporting less than we're importing. Now let's look at the trade deficit that we talked about. When you look at the trade deficit, you know that's been decreasing dramatically. One of the main reasons why we've experienced this trade deficit is the U.S. economy is more dependent on other countries. They're more dependent upon other countries because we buy more goods and services from those countries. It creates a lot of opportunities. Because of the goods are cheaper, because of the advantages, that's one of the reasons why we have this trade deficit. Now let's look at Chapter 12. Chapter 12 is going to look at unemployment. Unemployment is going to be looking at how individuals that are not working compared to the labor force. Anyone that's unemployed is anyone that's at least 16 years or older who's actively seeking a job. You'll notice that we're very focused on the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is very interesting because it shows how the economy is doing. When you look at the economy, you'll notice that an economy is growing when the unemployment rate is lower. We have this thing called the labor force, and the labor force is the total number of workers, both employed and unemployed. Now, when we look at the unemployment rate, this is the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed, not the percentage of the adult population, but the percentage of the labor force that's unemployed. When we look at the labor force participation rate, we're looking at the percentage of the adult population that is participating in the labor force, which means the percentage of the population which is either working or looking for a job out of the adult population. If you look at this table, you'll notice that the unemployment is a very small portion compared to the employed and not in the labor force, a very small portion. But we focus on the unemployment rate. That tells us a lot about our economy and how's it doing. When we compare the unemployment rate, you can compare it to other countries. You'll notice there's a big disparity when you compare this to other countries. Other countries are experiencing a much different rate compared to other countries. And given this rate, this shows you what economies are growing compared to us. So these are some of the concepts that we're covering this week. If you'd like additional resources, please make sure to review the ancillary materials, but I look forward to your effort.